Hi! Today I would like to discuss with you if there are leg strikes in 133 and if you should train them, which actually seems to be quite a controversial topic in Sword and Buckler. So let's approach the topic scientifically and discuss pro and contra arguments. First up, in the surviving imagery of 133, there are no depictions of leg hits at all. Second, on folio 2R upper plate, the author discourages any strike. One could not reach the higher part, and striking low would be dangerous to the head. The argument here is a technique called Überlaufen in the Lichtenauer tradition and quite universal in sword fighting. Since a sword is an extension of our hand, our maximum range is described by a sphere around the shoulder of our sword arm. So, we have maximum reach at our own shoulder height. This is supported by the posture of the combatants in 133. The low posture with a forward lean and the hip pulled back withdraws the lower openings from our opponent. This is an approach other later fencing manuals adopt as well. So what speaks in favor of training leg hits anyway? First, on folio 2R, the priest just discourages a first intention attack to the legs. He warns you about the danger of it, but this certainly suggests that an attack like that is a possibility. That becomes very clear when on folio 6R, the priest himself thrusts under the bind and tells you to beware your head in a situation like that, before he defends the incoming strike of the scholar. The thrust seems to be pointing at the lower ribs, or maybe even the scholar's stomach, but it can stand for a whole lot of possibilities of thrusting and maybe even striking below the bind. On 21R, for example, the scholar strikes from an underbind to the priest's arms with the opportunity of a thrust. As the priest withdraws, the scholar follows and finishes the play with another thrust. On folio 23R, there is a thrust to the scholar's belly from an overbind. Unfortunately, we are told that due to the artist's mistake, there are no more pictures of this play. Funnily enough, due to the withdrawn stomach, the leg here would actually be closer. So, we might just be missing folios where a strike to the leg would actually have been shown, as a possibility at least. There are a couple of later manuscripts which somewhat relate to 133, where we can find according images. But even if not, I would still recommend you to train striking to the legs. From one martial artist to another, be able to deal with the optimal, but be ready for the possible. We don't get to dictate how opponents behave, how they stand, how they strike, how they fight. The only thing we control for sure is ourselves. So even if a leg strike in a situation of first ward against half shield might have an inherent danger, if you don't train against it, you won't be able to defend it and abuse your supposedly superior position. Excluding lower strikes will leave your training incomplete and leads to silly artifacts, bad posture, and overconfidence in your own abilities. For example, I noticed it's actually pretty common in fighting with just gloves and mask, which has other benefits of course, but there is a hesitation for attacks to the lower body, since we naturally don't want to injure our partners. That leads to your guarding positions being too high, since we prefer striking to the mask, thus leaving our legs even more open. So if you don't train for leg strikes, how to do them and how to defend them properly, these strikes might actually become an optimal strategy against you. And last but not least, if we compare Sword and Buckler to Sword alone or Longsword or other systems, the Buckler actually makes lag attacks more viable, since it's at least possible to just defend your upper openings with the Buckler alone, while with a Sword we just have to rely on tempo and measure. So to sum this up, there are no lag attacks in the surviving depictions of 133. They might not be optimal, but certainly possible in most situations. They might actually be optimal if your opponent does not train against them. Train the way you like, but my advice would be train lag strikes and how to defend them, and your fencing will become much better and closer to the source we work with. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Feel free to add arguments to the comment section. I'm looking forward to discussing this with you. For now, see you soon.